When Quinn said these words, Fex felt his confidence. He wanted to say he was crazy for trying to take on such a monster when he could barely dodge its attacks. But for some reason, with his tone of voice and the air around him, it felt like something in Quinn had changed compared to him a few moments ago. "Who are you, really? Is this the difference between the Punishers and the rest of us?" So far, Fex had multiple guesses about who Quinn was, but all of them seemed to be missing the mark. Everything just didn't go together yet. Still, Fex went off to the side and leaned up against the building wall. Ham, who had been flying and hovering in the air for most of the time, came swooping down. "Ham, if I don't come back from this, I want you to go back to the others. Don't stay here," Fex ordered. "What do you mean?" Ham replied. "I know the wounds are bad, but you should eventually heal from this, right?" As Ham said those words, he started to look at the wounds. Although they would take a while to fully heal, it was obvious if the healing process had started or not, as the bleeding should have already stopped. But from the multiple cuts that were mainly on his upper body and arms, blood was still seeping out. "Master, are you doing this on purpose?" Fex didn't reply, but it was clear that this was his answer. Ham wanted to complain. He had been with Fex since he could remember, but he had to do whatever Fex told him. "And what about the other vampire? If I return, do you want me to inform them about him?" Ham asked. While at the school, Fex's state of mind had changed a lot. At first, he wanted to get close to Quinn as a scapegoat if his family ever came to get him. He still had that in his plans, but during their short time together, they had done many things, and Fex had honestly never had a more interesting and fun time with someone. "Leave it. What Quinn does is none of our business," Fex replied. Both Logan and Quinn now stood a few meters apart from the smaller version of the king-tiered beast that they were up against. "Logan, I want you to stay behind me. When I give the call, I want you to attack with all that you have," Quinn said. For the first time, Quinn seemed to be taking the leadership role, something that Logan had done previously. Still, Logan wasn't complaining. He didn't know what Quinn had up his sleeve, but he had known him long enough to trust him. Quinn's shadow before was continuously shifting around his body. Usually, he did these series of actions as a form of protection for himself. Of course, he only did something like this when there was a fight. This time, he had the shadow in a ball-like shape hovering above his shoulder. Against the king-tiered beast, it was useless to use as a defensive measure. Its attacks were too fast for him to move the shadow in the right position. If it couldn't be used for defense, then it was better off being used as an attack. The beast had waited long enough, instead of charging in as it usually did. It decided to swing out its bladed arm and stretch it out from the side. Right now, Quinn was standing directly in front of Logan. With this attack, it was clear that its target was Logan. Even if he did trust Quinn, just to be sure, Logan raised the energy blade, knowing his suit wouldn't be able to handle an attack. "You're not the only one that can do something like that." Quinn threw a blood swipe and then grabbed it quickly with his shadow. He had made his shadow scythe. He swung it down from above, hoping to hammer it down before it reached Logan. Knowing the strength of the previous blood swipe, the beast chose to ignore it and continued with its attack. The blood swipe from before would have shattered and not even affected the path of its attack, only slowing it down a little. Bang! Like a hammer coming down on a nail. The scythe managed to knock the tree root arm, pinning it to the ground. "That attack wasn't that strong last time," Fex said, seeing this. It hadn't been too long since they fought. In that amount of time, Quinn had leveled up a few times as well as gained a few samples of blood from others. I just... Sia was at a loss for words. She had experienced too many surprises with this group so far. They were all monsters. "Can you do something like that?" Sia asked Layla. So far, she seemed to be the only normal one in the group, but she remembered that she had thought the same about Quinn, thinking he was normal, and after being proven wrong, she felt like it could happen again. "As I said, they saved your life earlier. These guys are amazing." As she said those words, she too wished she would be able to take part in the fight, rather than stand by the side. Seeing that the beast was targeting Logan and not him, Quinn knew he needed to do something. Windwalk activated. Activating his boots, he dashed forward and traveled at a speed that had never been achieved by him before. In an instant, he had nearly covered the entire distance and was now directly in front of the beast. Punching the beast as hard as it could in the stomach, Quinn was hoping to make some sort of impact, but it didn't even budge. As its other hand retracted back, it started swinging away, attacking him in the same way as it did with Fex. Only the result this time was different. Every strike was avoided. When Fex faced the beast, he was able to avoid the critical blows, but he would still suffer some hits here and there. With Quinn, it was different. He was able to avoid each of the strikes cleanly, not getting a scratch on him. This speed, did he hide his strength? Just how? Fex was now even more confused than before. Nothing made sense to him right now. Why fake being hurt? Why risk being attacked by such a strong beast, and how only moments ago Quinn was unable to avoid the strike? But at this moment he was able to perfectly evade every strike. His speed even surpassed Fex's at this moment. When improving Quinn's stats, each time it went up by 10, there was a significant improvement, and even he could feel this. From 18 to 19 in a stat point, although there was a difference, it was barely noticeable, but going from 19 to 20. The change could be felt and was tremendous. Being able to just dodge the attacks wasn't going to be enough. Whenever an opening appeared, Quinn tried his best to throw out a punch, but the beast's reflexes were just as fast as its attacks, being able to easily block Quinn's attacks or even move out of the way. Bloodhammer was still the strongest skill in Quinn's arsenal, but it took quite a long time to perform. However, the hammer strike, with his increased speed, could be performed fast enough. He just needed to know how to land the attack. While dodging the attacks, Quinn thought hard. The other problem was his stamina. He wouldn't be able to keep up. Then, an idea hit him while looking at the beast's movements. Right now, he was facing a humanoid-type beast. Not only that, but it had some level of intelligence as well. With this in mind, Quinn threw out a punch from above. Using his speed, he threw out one after another. The first attack was blocked, and when the beast saw the second one, it twisted its body slightly to avoid the blow. Then, something strange happened. It had blocked one punch and dodged the other, yet a third hand had come out and hit the beast right on its temple of its rounded head. From the outside, the others were just as confused as the beast, because to them, it looked like the beast had moved into Quinn's attack. "Looks like the phantom punch is a success," said Quinn with a smile. Deeply confused by what just happened, the others thought it must have been a mistake on the beast's part. Perhaps Logan's attack had hurt it more than they thought, and now its movements weren't as swift as before. The only one who knew what happened was Quinn himself. He used the phantom punch. This was an attack that would only work on humanoid creatures with a certain level of intelligence. Quinn wasn't so sure if it would work, but it was obvious that it worked, and was incredibly useful in the battle. Those with high intelligence wouldn't be tricked by the phantom punch. At the same time, beasts whose intelligence was far too low wouldn't even recognize the trick in the first place. This was the reason why the phantom punch wouldn't work on most beasts. However, it seemed like the beast in front of him was perfect for the phantom punch. The level of intelligence was enough for it to be tricked, but not high enough to recognize that it was being tricked. The standoff between the two continued, with Quinn avoiding most of the blows cleanly, and whenever an opening revealed itself, Quinn would throw multiple punches, mixing in a phantom punch in between. Once again, another blow landed, this time on the beast's neck just above its chest. Again? Is the beast starting to slow down? Sia thought. But watching closely, Fex could see that the beast hadn't slowed down at all. Its movements were still as fast as ever, so what was happening? It was simply incomprehensible. Eventually, the tide was starting to turn. As Quinn continued with the fight, he started to be the aggressor more often, hiding his phantom punches in between the ordinary jabs. The outsiders felt as if the beast was the one on the defensive, and that it was delivering itself onto the path of Quinn's attacks. It would constantly dodge and lean onto Quinn's fists. Then, instead of dodging, the beast decided to block the upcoming attack. Lifting its arms, it covered its rounded head, but with its movements. Quinn took the opportunity to send a blow to its stomach. At this point, Fex finally understood what was happening. It's got to be the phantom punch. I can't think of anything else. He's mixing it with the ordinary jabs and hooks. But who taught him the phantom punch, and when? He was in school with me, or could it be that the other vampire is teaching him in the school again? Even with all these points, and even if Quinn did have a teacher that was in the school, it didn't explain the crazy amount of time it had taken him to learn such a skill. Now, Fex was frightened. Before, it was amazing, but every time he saw Quinn get stronger, a strange feeling overcame him. He was sure he was always stronger than him. Now he couldn't say for sure. It was as if he was looking at two different people. The punches continued to descend like a waterfall, and now it looked like the beast was getting bullied. The monster that they were all afraid of a few moments ago was getting punched left and right by Quinn. "I was wrong," Sia said. "I can't believe I thought he was useless. I'm sorry, Layla. I now understand why you got mad." As Layla watched Quinn, even she hadn't expected something like this from him. Although the tides had turned in the fight, with Quinn being able to attack the beast several times. It did not affect it whatsoever. The blows didn't leave any wounds or marks, and it had barely moved from its original position due to Quinn's attacks. "It must be doing something," Quinn thought. Otherwise, why would the beast attempt to block the attacks? Still, he wasn't doing enough damage, and if he continued like this, his stamina would run out before the beast. "Looks like I have to use the hammer strike after all," Quinn thought. There was still a problem, though. The hammer strike may be quicker than the blood hammer, but it was still far too slow for the beast. Another phantom punch was delivered to the stomach. As the beast went to block the attack, a flash step was performed, and Quinn was now standing directly behind the beast. The movements of the hammer strike had started, and the beast attempted to turn around. As it did, its movements slowed down, and its feet got stuck in the place where it was standing. It hadn't noticed that during the fight, Quinn had moved his shadow down to the beast's feet. Holding it in place, the plan was never to keep the beast there. He knew it wouldn't hold it back long enough, but it was enough time for him to perform the hammer strike. Placing his foot down, he pulled one arm back and snapped the other one out, hitting the beast right in the center. For the first time, it lifted into the air, and when it landed, the beast stumbled, struggling to stand on its 2 feet. "Logan, get ready!" Quinn shouted. "Maximum output!" Logan shouted, and his final guitar-like weapon doubled in size. The beast was now recovering. It was about to lift itself off the floor. The attack was effective, but not good enough. Afraid that it might move and avoid the decisive blow, Quinn reacted fast. "Shadow Void!" A bubble-like space was created in an instant. It was the same as the Shadow Void from before, but this one was a lot smaller. It also didn't encase Quinn and Logan, but only went around the beast. This would stop the beast from running away and would buy them a little bit of time. "Attack now!" Quinn ordered. Logan was slightly confused as what was going on. After all, Quinn was displaying several different skills that he had never seen before. After seeing how he fought the beast so far, he decided to listen and swung down at the bubble-like space where he last saw the beast. At the same time, Quinn prepared himself. He planned on canceling Shadow Void to allow Logan's attack to land on the beast. "Cancel Shadow!" While in the middle of canceling the skill, the Shadow Void had broken itself. This was also an expected result. Logan continued to lunge forward with his large energy guitar. But he noticed something strange. In the short amount of time it was in the Shadow Void, its appearance had completely changed. The green roots that covered and formed the muscle structure of the beast were now glowing slightly red. It looked as if all of the roots were flowing with energy. They were pulsating, and something could be seen flowing throughout its body. "Did I wait too long?" Vorden said as he watched from a window up high, in a building nearby. He was still waiting for the perfect opportunity, so he never threw the spirit spear. It was too hard for him to find that opportunity, since both Quinn and the beast were just too fast for him to see. But right now, Vorden could tell what had happened to the beast. It was now in rage mode, something only beasts at a higher tier could do. When they feel danger or their life was jeopardized, a beast could go into rage mode. With this, the maximum amount of energy from the crystal inside them would pump around their body. Beasts rarely went into this mode, due to the fact they could only go into it once, if all the energy from the crystal was used up while in rage mode. They would die and no longer exist. It was a move only used in desperate times. The other problem was, if a beast was killed while it was in rage mode, the crystal obtained from it would be useless. Travelers would often try their best to defeat the beast before it entered rage mode. It was clear, though, a beast in rage mode was a lot stronger. Even with his help and the new and improved Quinn, Vorden was unsure if they could beat it. The Qatar continued to thrust forward. Seeing this, the beast knocked the weapon away, shattering it, as its attack collided against the weapon. Lifting its legs out, it extended like a fast piston, hitting Logan in the stomach. Logan was flung back in the air and was thrown several feet down the street. As he was chucked through the air, several of the spiders that made up the suit seemed to fall onto the ground as well. They had been damaged, beyond what they were capable of withstanding, and could no longer be used. "Why? Does the world want us all?" Layla said. Fex, seeing this, was now sure. He had made the right decision. He had been suppressing it this whole time, but with the blood loss, his lust had grown to the maximum. Purposely not healing himself, Fex had done this as a last resort, and it was time to use it. Slowly his body was starting to change, his muscles were bulging, his skin shrinking, and his hair was falling off from the top of his head. Ham flew away from his master, looking back at what Fex had become. He had a sad look on his face.
"So you did transform."
Vorden had the best view of what was going on down below. The two girls, along with Peter, were at the opposite end of the street, hiding between two buildings. Their heads were tilted around the side. It was quite a distance from the fight, but still close enough so they could see everything. Vorden himself was in a building, but was on the 4th floor, looking out from a window. One of the light balls that Logan had shot out earlier was hanging from the very top of the same building. He carefully watched what was going on. He needed to see and wait for the right moment to strike. At one point, when Logan had attacked the beast, he thought that was the right time. He and Rayton had switched places, and Rayton was ready to throw the spirit spear. Just before doing so, Rayton informed Vorden about something. With the use of MC cells from both Logan and Sia, Vorden right now had one of the strongest support abilities out there. What they found out was, now with a higher level of support ability came more options. Sia's ability limited her to creating only one spear at a time. This limit was still there, even with the increase in power, but there were a couple of differences. More MC cells could be put into the spirit spear, creating a more powerful spear. How long or what the effects were, they couldn't tell until the spear was thrown. Once they obtained this information, Vorden felt like it was best to create a stronger spear, one as strong as possible. They might only have one chance at this. The more powerful the attack when using an ability, the more MC cells it would use. As he continued to watch from above, his heart started to sink. A strange feeling came over him, while beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. The beast had gone into rage mode, but that wasn't the reason Vorden was worried. It was because there was something else down there with them that had brought back bad memories. Fex, who was leaning up against one of the buildings, was no longer there, or at least was no longer himself. Instead, the sight of what was known as a bloodsucker was there instead. It looked nearly identical to the time he had faced Quinn back on the Red Portal planet. There were a few differences, but the horrifying creature brought back memories. That day, Syl had saved his life, fighting against the bloodsucker, and in his place, Ian was. When Quinn was the beast, there was no telling friend from foe. Vorden had kept silent so far, not wanting to reveal his position to the beast, but as he saw the bloodsucker moving towards Quinn, he needed to shout out. "Quinn, behind you!" Vorden shouted. Quinn had his eyes set ahead, looking at the beast. He was also concerned about Logan, who had been hit, but hearing the worry in Vorden's voice, he knew it was urgent. As he turned his head, he could see a bald, muscle-bound creature. The claws on its hands had widened. If it wasn't for the clothes that it was wearing, Quinn would never have known it was Fex. "What is that?" Quinn said. "Is it some type of vampire transformation?" As he looked into Fex's eyes, there was no longer any white in them. It was completely black. No emotion was felt by them. "Is he even still sane?" "Don't you remember?" the system said. "He has turned into a bloodsucker." After hearing the system say those words, Quinn briefly remembered when he hadn't consumed blood for a few days, his transformation had begun. A message appeared before his mind went to black, saying his transformation into a bloodsucker had been completed. "Did he do this willingly?" Quinn asked. "Perhaps for a vampire to turn into a bloodsucker, they must have an immense amount of thirst," the system explained. "My guess is, when he was wounded by the beast, he suppressed his healing abilities, allowing the blood to continue to drain from his body. When enough blood had poured out, he allowed his body to heal, using the last bit of his energy. Once the healing process was completed and his powers had been used, his thirst was at its maximum. It's a risky thing to do if you allow too much blood to leave your body and your wounds weren't able to heal, then it could be life-threatening. I'm surprised this young boy knew how to do such a thing. Vampires aren't often taught this, since a bloodsucker doesn't even see its kind as a friend, which would suggest he is an important figure, perhaps the son of one of the vampire's heads." Although the explanation was interesting for Quinn, he didn't have much time to think about it. Right now he was stuck between the two of them. On one side was the raged king-tier beast, and the other a bloodsucker. Quinn didn't know which one was more troublesome. When Quinn turned into a bloodsucker, all his stats were doubled, but his health decreased, and he was unable to use his vampire skills. He looked to his left, he looked to his right, waiting for one of them to make their first movement. At the same time, the bloodsucker and beast dashed forward. "Damn it, Shadow Cloak!" Quinn said. From his feet, the shadow rose, and suddenly Quinn had vanished from their sight. However, it didn't seem like either one of them was interested in him. As Quinn hurried to escape from the area, the two of them clashed in the center of the street. The bloodsucker swiped its claw, while the beast threw out its balded arm. As the two clashed, the power between the two of them was so strong, it looked as if ripples were being created in the air. At first, Quinn wanted to go check up on Logan and pull him off to the side to see if he was okay. But when he looked at where Logan was last seen, he was no longer there. Peter had already dragged his body from the street and brought him over to the two girls, although they didn't have to do much. Logan had already removed the helmet part of his suit. His mouth had blood trickling down from the side. The miniature robotic spiders were working away, patching him up here and there. They could fix the external wounds, but not the internal ones. It was clear Logan could no longer fight. Instead of going over to where the others were, while the other two were busy fighting, Quinn decided to stay quite close to the fight. He was learning a lot from the fight. While watching, their speed was so great, Quinn couldn't keep up. To the others, they were nearly unable to see anything, apart from once in a while, when there would be a standoff of power. As the fight continued, Quinn was able to see each attack made by the two of them. Although they looked wild and random, as attacks came rushing out from both of them, it looked like it wasn't the case at all. A lot of Fex's original martial arts moves were still involved, and the beast, too, was picking its spots carefully, making it tricky for Fex to get a clean strike in. One thing was clear, though. If Quinn was to fight either one of them the way he was now, he would be in an instant. Still, he chose to stay close, since learning from the fight wasn't the only reason. In the back of his mind, there was one thing he kept thinking about: the quest. The reward of the quest would help him grow in the future. Not only did Quinn want the experience points for King-tier Beast, but he also wanted the quest reward. Most likely, if Quinn wasn't the one to deal the finishing blow, it wouldn't count the quest as completed. While the beast was in its rage mode, there was only one attack that could do any type of damage, and that was the Bloodhammer. The only question was how. How would he get the last hit? The fight continued between the bloodsucker and the king-tier beast. At first, when the two of them fought, it looked fairly even between them. Neither one of them was getting significantly hurt by the other. This was good for Fex. When a vampire turns into a bloodsucker, their health, or in Quinn's case HP, decreases. Their wounds would also no longer heal. It was a starved state for vampires, a mode that allowed them to grow stronger to consume blood, but also acted as a double-edged sword. However, slowly one of them was starting to get an edge, and it looked like it was the bloodsucker. Quinn was starting to notice that the power and the speed of the king-tier beast were finally starting to slow down. The beast had been in combat with multiple opponents, and multiple times, so it made sense to Quinn, but this wasn't the reason why. It had an inhuman amount of stamina, and could continue to fight the students for hours on end. The reason why it was starting to slow down and weaken was because of its rage mode. Simply put, the crystal inside was drawing out more power than it could generate, and now the beast was slowly dying. Not understanding what was happening, Quinn felt like this was his chance to attack. Whatever happened, he needed to get that last hit. He had used most of his MC points during the fight, and right now, the only skill he could use was the Shadow Cloak, which he used to hide his presence. Quinn planned to inch closer and closer and try to get behind the king-tier beast. While it was distracted fighting, Quinn would prepare the Bloodhammer and perform a flash step, dashing him forward just before delivering the punch. Trying to implement his strategy, he slowly started to creep towards the fight. On the street, Quinn and the others were stationed on the side of Fex, while the beast was on the other side, which led towards the tower. The fight was still hectic, and the two would span the whole width of the street. The king-tier beast threw one of its arms out, and the bloodsucker managed to grab it. Using its increased strength, it yanked the arm as hard as it could, ripping it from the beast's shoulder. Black blood once again squirted out from the wound. Quinn had seen this before, when Logan had done the same thing. Soon the beast would heal, but this was Quinn's chance. Running forward and around the two, he wanted to get behind the fight. As he took a step to the side, suddenly, a large claw-like fist came out towards him. The fist was briefly stopped by the shadow, and when he looked at where it had come from, it was from the bloodsucker. It could sense where I was even with the shadow cloak on, Quinn thought. Luckily, I already thought that something like this might happen and prepared my shadow just in case. Quinn quickly stepped back and went to his position before. It looked like Fex really could no longer differentiate between friend and foe. Now, there was another problem on Quinn's hands. The attack from the bloodsucker, although it was blocked by the shadow, would be the last one. For now, Quinn's MC points had reached 0. 0 of 100 MC. He couldn't complain, though. Due to being underground, he was able to use the shadow more often than he usually could. It seemed like his powers and the amount of MC points taken to use the skills had lessened while down here. Yes, he could no longer use his shadow cloak, but against these two there was no point using it anyway. They could both sense his presence with or without the shadow cloak. The only thing was, now the others could see him as well. When Quinn had disappeared, they thought he perhaps had left the scene. They never imagined he was still close to the fight. "Quinn, what are you doing? Leave it to the two monsters," Vorden said from above. "Does your friend have some type of pride or something?" Sia said. "The only reason I can think of him staying is that he wants to be the one to kill the beast." Layla agreed with Sia for once. She didn't know the reason why Quinn had chosen to stay. Was he worried about Fex? Or was it something else? The beast had done the same, as last time after its arm had been ripped out. It wanted to take a few steps back and start to recover, but the bloodsucker wasn't going to let it go. When the beast dashed backwards, the bloodsucker chased it. Before, its other opponents had been too slow. It didn't expect something to be able to match it in speed down here. With a swipe to its chest, the red roots were split open, and the black blood squirted out once again. "It has to be. I need to get that last hit." Obsessed with getting the quest reward for thing, Quinn dashed forward. When he got close to the two of them, the bloodsucker turned around. The beast behind it looked like it was barely standing. "Come on, come at me, Fex!" Quinn shouted as he threw out his leg, performing a vertical slice of red aura. Seeing this, the bloodsucker leaped in the air, and it looked like it would close the distance between the two with one jump. "Quinn!" Layla said worriedly. Peter was already on the move. He dashed out, hoping to take the attack in Quinn's place. However, they were too far, and he would never make it in time. The others expected Quinn to attempt to dodge, but instead, he started to go through the motion of the hammer strike, timing everything perfectly when the bloodsucker jumped. Just when it was about to land, Quinn performed a flash step. Avoiding the attack, he appeared in front of the king-tier beast. "Bloodhammer!" The beast was already weak, and using all the strength he could, he snapped back his arm and with the punch, released the power of the level 2 blood spray, performing a bloodhammer. A loud, shotgun-like sound echoed through the underground town. Carefully, Quinn had hit the same spot where the bloodsucker had clawed out the roots, protecting its upper body. Unlike before, the attack seemed to go through. "Did he do it?" Layla thought. Peter had stopped running, and a smile appeared on his face. He could tell Quinn had done it because he felt stronger. "Quest completed. Defeat the king-tier beast." Multiple notification screens appeared at the same time, but Quinn didn't have much time to read all of them. While celebrating his victory, a strong fist came out from the side, hitting him on the body and flinging him through the air. Looking down, Quinn could see the bloodsucker's ugly face. "That hit! It came from Fex! Was I too greedy this time?" Quinn said. "It's not usually like me to be like that." While having these thoughts, he quickly realized something. He wasn't. Surely a full-on hit from Fex would have killed him, but the reality was it hadn't. Quinn had hardly been hurt at all. 50 of 95 HP. Using his blood bank, he was able to heal most of his wounds and recover around 60 of his HP points. That meant the attack had only taken a little over 10 when hit. Opening his eyes, Quinn could see the bloodsucker in front of him again. He had been chucked into the air and sent back, but it wasn't too far, as the blow had significantly weakened, and now he knew why. Looking at Fex, a large, thick blue spirit spear was stuck inside the bloodsucker. It was hard to even call it a spear, as it seemed to be around the same thickness as an adult human. It looked more like a column that would hold up buildings. "Quinn, I can't produce another one like that. Finish him now if you can," a voice was heard shouting from down the street. Looking behind the bloodsucker, Quinn could see Vorden running towards him. The spear had come from him, waiting for the right moment to throw the spear into the king-tier beast. It looked like it would never happen, and eventually the beast had already. But Vorden was glad he had held out. After Quinn's attack, he could see what was going to happen, and threw out the large spirit spear into Fex. It was thanks to this that the blow was significantly reduced in terms of power and speed. Still, Vorden knew he needed to continue, and to act fast. After throwing out the larger spirit spear, he was unable to produce it again. Because of this, Rayton switched places back with Vorden and ran out, hoping to support Quinn. He could only throw the regular spears now, but it was better than nothing. "Fex?" Quinn said. No, he couldn't do that. It was only because of him that they were able to kill the king-tier beast in the first place. They could have quite possibly died there today. It wasn't fair for them to hurt their savior. "What do you want to do?" a voice said next to Quinn's right. Peter had now joined them as well. Vorden was standing to the right of the bloodsucker, while Quinn and Peter were standing on the other side of the street. Logan was still hurt and patching himself up with the help of the two girls next to one of the buildings, staying out of trouble. While watching what was going on, the girls started to hear a few voices from somewhere. "So, just a little further ahead and the beast you encountered before should be here?" a confident young voice said. "Yes, sir. Every time we wanted to go explore the tower, the beast would come out and stop us. This happened several times while trying to make our way towards the tower, no matter which direction we came from. It seems to be protecting something," a female voice said. "Unfortunately, each time we faced the beast, although we were able to come out with our lives, we were unable to defeat it." "I would agree with your prediction," the confident voice replied. "You were right to not report this to the other shelters, as well as the military shelter. Hopefully that treasure can do well for our faction. So, what do you think about that loud bang we heard a few moments ago? Do you think this place was discovered by others?" another male's voice asked. "That's why we're heading there now." Layla and Sia could hear the group. Soon they could see where the conversation was coming from. Down the street, a group of travelers was walking together. It was easy to spot them, since each of them had a sticky light patch on them. It worked similar to a torch, only it didn't need to be held and could just be stuck on top of their armor. It also glowed the surrounding area rather than just one direction. It allowed the area around the person to be bathed in light. "Don't they look kind of familiar?" Sia thought. The girls didn't come running out. Just because they saw things that looked like humans didn't mean they were. "Yeah, back at the shelter," Layla replied. They were the group of travelers who had reported to the military, updating them about the exploration. Judging by the conversation they had just overheard, it looked like they hadn't exactly been truthful with their report either. Layla wanted to move from their position. They weren't inside a particular building, but were just between two buildings down an alleyway. She still wasn't sure about these people. If they could lie to the military, perhaps they would also happily silence them for being down here and knowing about this place as well. The problem was Logan. He still looked like he couldn't move. While she was thinking about what to do, it was too late to do anything anyway. "Over there," a female voice said. "It looks like there are other people here. Heck, they're kids, aren't they?" The group quickly rushed over to the students and was shocked at the state. The students looked quite young. After seeing their uniform, they quickly figured out where they were from, the military. Something must have happened, the group thought. They were a group of 5. All of them had beast gear covering their bodies. The female was the first to approach them, named Lily, who also had a bow on her back. Only hers looked a level higher than what Layla had. Then there were a couple of bald twins. None of them held a weapon in their hand, but their legs were covered in thick boots, while the rest of their legs had light armor. It was a strange sight. They were called Rock and Pock. There was another man who seemed to be staying by the youngest-looking person's side. He had a shield on his back, with a sword sheathed at his waist. The man looked a little older than the others. It was as if he had been assigned to look after the whole team, but after listening to them for a while. Layla quickly figured out that he wasn't the leader. It was the young man standing next to them. The young man had brown, wavy hair that was tied up in a ponytail. His weapon of choice was a spear placed on his back. It was as long as him in length. The most noticeable thing about him was the air around him. It was full of confidence, and one had a look of experience. When Layla looked at him, she was reminded of Leo. "I'm the leader, Andre," the young man said. "What happened here? Do you guys get attacked?" "Quinn, move!" Vorden shouted. As Andre asked the question, he heard voices coming down the street. When the group looked in the direction from where the voices were coming, they saw 3 other students fighting against a strange creature. "Is that the beast you guys encountered before Andy?" Andre asked. "No, sir. That's something else. I've never seen that before," the older man, Andy, replied. "It doesn't matter. They're in trouble and we need to slay the beast." Loud footsteps could be heard in the shadows where the team had come from. A figure slowly came out of the darkness. "Another beast, and it looks like a strong one! Turn around!" Sia exclaimed in a panic. But the group of travelers didn't look panicked at all. The strange beast looked like a lion and was the same size as one. Its muscles could be seen as well, but on its bottom half, instead of a single tail, it carried several, each with a small flame at the end. The lion approached Andre's side and started to lick him in the face. "A tame beast?" Layla said. "That's right," Lily replied. "You guys don't have to worry about a thing. We will get rid of that beast for you. You see, our leader here is from one of the big 4 families." Andre, the leader of the group, had a beast by his side, and he could very well control it, which meant that he belonged to the Bree family. This family wasn't any regular family, because they were one of the big 4. But Layla couldn't recognize Andre. Although apart from the leaders, anyone from the big 4 wasn't recognizable unless they had a bad reputation. The Bree family was a bit unique compared to the other strong families and original families out there. Their ability had always existed, only it wasn't as threatening as the others. Before Earth started the exploration of beast planets, the Bree family were only able to tame one thing, the current animals on Earth. It was only after the exploration that their true power came to light. Beasts from other planets were a lot stronger than animals back on Earth. Depending on their level and control of the ability, it allowed them to tame higher and lower-level beasts. It would also affect the number of beasts they could control at one time as well. Their power was borrowed power, in a way. They weren't the ones that did the actual fighting, or this is what others would think. It was the general thought between the public, or those that had never seen a Bree before. The Brees were incredibly talented when it came to fighting, but while taming a stronger beast, one would have to show it was stronger than what it was trying to tame. There would be cases where this wasn't needed, but for the higher levels, it was a different story. With their incredible fighting skills and strong beasts, they were able to work together, creating a powerful force, and eventually climbed up the ladder to be a part of the Big 4. Just relying on others' powers wasn't enough to make it at the leader's table. The group of travelers was already gone. Lily, the archer, had decided to stay behind to keep a close eye on the students, just in case any other beasts appeared. Layla wanted to say something, as she was sure Quinn didn't want Fex to be hurt and was trying to come up with a way to save him, but she couldn't think of a good explanation, and they had already gone. "Don't worry, my friends are strong," Lily said with a smile, trying to comfort the students. She thought they must have had such a terrible experience fighting down here in the dark. "That's what I'm worried about," Layla thought, "because my friends are strong as well." With all 3 of the boys standing around the bloodsucker, it was confused about who to target. Suddenly, it started to sniff into the air like some type of hound. "What's it doing?" Peter asked. Quinn thought the same thing, but that's when he realized what a bloodsucker was. It was a starved vampire. It was unable to consume the blood of Peter and Quinn, so the only one there it would be interested in was Vorden. "Vorden, run!" Quinn shouted as he tried to dash to his side. But the larger spirit's spear had worn off, and at most, Vorden was able to produce 2 more spears, slowing down the beast by 20%. Even with this reduction, it was still a lot faster than Quinn, and he would never be able to reach Vorden's side in time. Seeing the bloodsucker heading toward him gave him bad memories once again, and he had frozen in place. Vorden hadn't felt fear like this in a long time. "Syl, we need you!" Vorden shouted. Trying to think quickly on his feet, Quinn took out the flask. He was hoping if he popped open the lid, the smell of blood would allow it to change its target. However, even before Quinn was able to do that, A strange lion-like beast had jumped in between Vorden and the bloodsucker. As it pounced towards the bloodsucker, the flames on its tails grew brighter. The two of them clashed in the center, claw against paw, and surprisingly, it was outpowered and pushed back. It was chucked to the ground and rolled on the floor, before quickly picking itself up and growling loudly at the creature. "Looks like you're going to need my help with this one, Cookie." The young man Andre held out his spear and stood by his lion's side. "This is not the same beast we encountered before," Andy said. The others had now come and joined their leader in battle. "This beast is stronger than Cookie. Not only that, but it seems to be stronger than the king-tier beasts we had met earlier." When Andy and his group of companions came down to fight against the king-tier beast, they weren't strong enough to force it into a rage mode. This is why they believed the bloodsucker was more powerful than the king-tier beast. When both of them were fighting at their full power, they were even. The two bald twins had appeared, one by Vorden's side and the other by Peter's side. "You guys did well to survive against such a thing," one of them said. "But you can now leave it to us," the other said, ending the first one's sentence. "We will take you back to your friends. Follow us quickly, as we must help our leader to fight." The twins were insistent, and before they could even reply, they were already trying to pull both Vorden and Peter out of the fighting area. While being pulled along, Vorden was moving his head around the area. "Where's Quinn? Wasn't he on the other side? If he's hiding, he must have a reason," Vorden thought. However, when one of the twins tried to pull Peter, they were suddenly stopped. The twin yanked again, and it felt like he was trying to move a large boulder. "What are you doing? Why won't you move? If you stay here, you will be—" Peter then looked back in a certain direction. He waited a while before replying. "Okay, but don't touch me, or I might bite your hand off." The twins started wondering about who this student was. They had come to save their lives, and he was threatening them, although he wanted to snap back. He knew they were only students, and they must have gone through a lot, which was why Peter had responded the way he did. The two boys were taken out of the area, and now Andre and Andy felt like they could fight with no worry. The bloodsucker went towards the two in front of its eyes. It hadn't been injured much, but it was still starving from blood, as spit started dripping from its mouth. The first to move out of the two was Andy. He jumped forward with his large shield and braced himself for an attack. Slowly, parts of the shield seemed to cover themselves in reinforced earth. The core and metal part of the shield could be seen, but now the shield was twice the size, and the outside was covered in parts of the earth. The attack hit against the shield, breaking most of the earth away, but the shield was still perfectly intact. Still, the power of the strike caused Andy to slightly tumble himself, nearly falling to the ground, but a hand was placed on his back, stabilizing him. "I'm here," Andre said. Instead of charging forward, the bloodsucker could sense a slight vibration in the air and moved back. After a few moments, 2 slices of wind went past. "How did he know it was coming?" one of the twins said. They had returned after escorting the kids to Lily and used their wind abilities to throw out a kick and slice of wind. "It looks like this beast has some level of intelligence," Andre said as he jumped up onto Andy's shoulder, before running on top of his shield and jumping right on the edge towards the beast. From the side, Cookie, the lion beast, pounced once again. The flames this time on its tail were, even more, brighter than before, and when they clashed, neither one of them fell back. The bloodsucker seemed to be slightly stronger, but Andre wanted it held there for a moment. As he thrust his spear forward, he was able to hit the creature right between the ribs. Fex began to scream in pain as the pointy object was jammed into him. Usually, his tough muscles would be able to form some type of protection, but seeing how easily it penetrated him meant the weapon was one of a high level. Andre left the spear and was ready to hit it further, digging it into the creature, trying to cause a serious wound, but the second he let go, a large red area came from the side. He didn't know what it was, but he could sense its power, and leant back narrowly, avoiding the strike. "Get away from my friend!" a strange robotic and deep voice was heard. As the group turned to look at the speaker, all they could see was a human figure dressed in a black suit, wearing a demon mask that was covering its bottom jaw, while its eyes were white and shaped like a demon. After completing the quest successfully, Quinn didn't get much time to check the rewards or see what he obtained. There was a problem with Fex, and shortly after the travelers appeared as well. It seemed like the group was in trouble. Soon after seeing the travelers, he knew instantly how they would react after seeing Fex. It was hard for them to even explain the situation since Fex was currently attacking them. However, Quinn felt like he had a way to solve their current issue, only he didn't have much time to act. During the fight with the king-tier beast, he hadn't done this because they needed Fex in his bloodsucker form, but Quinn still had the flask that Fex had gifted him. Once he drank the blood from the flask, it should be enough for his body to turn to normal. Right now, these travelers that were trying to help were just getting in the way. Hiding in the shadows, Quinn started to think about his next move. What he didn't expect to happen was that the small group of travelers would be able to overpower the bloodsucker. After seeing him get stabbed in the ribs and howling in pain, Quinn had enough. "I need to do something," Quinn thought. Although he didn't know what rewards he had received from the quest, there were two standout things he knew he had gotten without reading the system messages. The first was his level. Level 18, 10,730 up 25,600 EXP, 6 free stat points. With each level, a large amount of EXP was required to level up, and by defeating one beast, Quinn was able to level up 3 more times. At the higher levels, it would usually take a huge amount of time for one to level up. But Quinn was fighting beasts several levels above what he was capable of. It was something the system had never expected. Before jumping in to help Fex, Quinn had made the quick decision to put all of his points into the charm stat. 22 charm points. This unlocked the next tier in his charm, and Quinn could tell that it would be different when he used it next. When fighting against humans or those like them, he knew the best stat to increase was the charm stat. His Phantom Punch had proven effective, and he also had the Daze and Influence skills. His speed was already great, although he could increase his strength based on the last fight. It was useless, unless he had the beast gear to go hand in hand with it. This left the Stamina and Charm stat. For now, other than not being able to use the Flash Step freely, Quinn hadn't run into any problems with his stamina. He still would have liked to increase both, but it made more sense to pour the points into his charm stat for this confrontation that was about to happen. With no time to lose, Quinn needed to reveal himself from the shadows, targeting his blood swipe at the leader Andre. When the blood swipe left his hands, he noticed that it was a lot more powerful than before. This confirmed one of the other messages that Quinn had received. All blood-related skills have increased by 1. Blood swipe level 3. Blood spray level 3. Crescent kick level 2. Blood bank level 2. This was a huge improvement in power. It took a long time for him to level up his skills, and Quinn was wondering if his blood bank would ever level up, and it finally did. Although it wasn't much use right now, because it was empty. "Why did you attack me? We're trying to get rid of this beast," Andre said, annoyed at the strange figure. It was clear the person who had attacked him was human, so he didn't want to lash out immediately and decided to break down into peaceful negotiations. There wasn't much time for chit-chat, though, since Fex had pulled out the spear in his side and threw it onto the ground. It swiped at Andre next to him again, but Andy was already by his side to block the attack with his shield once more. The two twins were now coming up from behind and threw out 2 wind kicks, forming a sharp slice from the tip of their boots. A few moments later, they could feel something running past them at an incredible speed. Quinn no longer had any MC points to use his shadow, so he could only rely on his blood skills for this one. Catching up to the twins' attacks, Quinn threw a quick kick from the side. Blood crescent kick! A large red aura immediately consumed the twins' attacks, and they dashed into the darkness. Annoyed at this, the twins ran forward. "Stop getting!" one of the Quinn said. "In our way!" the other finished the other's sentence. Making sure to make eye contact with one of them, Quinn activated his Daze skill. Daze successful. One of the twins immediately stopped as they felt a chill run down their spine. They didn't know what it was, but it was as if their bodies were being controlled. The other ran forward, unaware of what was happening to the other. Throwing out a fast punch, the twin was prepared to block the attack, lifting his 2 arms in an X-like shape, but the attack never came. Suddenly, he felt a heavy fist in his stomach. Blood spray! At the same time as the punch was released, Quinn used his blood spray at close range, sending one of them flying back. By now, the other had been released from the daze, and came charging forward, hoping to help out his brother. A kick was released at an amazing speed. Using the power of the wind behind his kick, rather than releasing it as an attack at the end, he was able to speed up his attack considerably. Seeing this, Quinn decided to match him toe-to-toe, throwing out a kick of his own just as fast. The two legs clashed mid-air as both of their shins struck each other. "Who is this person?" the twin thought. "He's just as fast as me, and I have beast gear on as well as using my wind abilities. The gear he's wearing doesn't look like it's made from high-level beasts, so what could it be?" While in the middle of this thought, he could see a flurry of fists coming towards him. He had knocked away the first one and attempted to block the second, moving his head to the side. Once again, just like with his brother, the attack that was meant to come had never come, and a fist came out from a different direction altogether, hitting him right on the head and knocking him down to the ground. With this attack, Quinn decided to not use his blood spray. 22 of 95 HP. Using the spray with his punches once in a while, and the blood swipe would continuously lower his HP. It was the big downside of using the blood abilities. Still, with the phantom punch, other than his mind feeling more tired as he used it, he had another skill he could rely on. Both Andy and Andre, including the beast, were busy with Fex, but from the corner of their eyes, they could see that the strange figure had easily dealt with two of their men. This surprised Andre. The two Quinn had dealt with weren't weak. They were strong and had gone on countless Orange Planet expeditions. They even survived and escaped a confrontation with a king-tier beast. It was why Andre wasn't worried about them and continued to deal with the bloodsucker, but he had never expected this. Looking at Andre's fight against Fex, Quinn could tell he was strong. All three of them were evenly matched against him. Even with Quinn's speed increase and power increase, he wasn't as strong as Fex in his current form. With the little HP he currently had, on top of no longer having any MC points to use his shadow ability, Quinn didn't want to do anything stupid like confront Andre and Andy. He quickly popped the lid of the flask, and straight away he was able to smell the sweet aroma of blood coming from it. "I hope this works," Quinn said, and just like that, Fex turned his head, catching the same smell as Quinn. Now, this was the hard part. Immediately, Quinn started to run off in the direction of the tower, and Fex chased after him. Both of them ran down the street into the darkness. Both of them were now invisible, since they were no longer in the sticky lights that Logan had shot on the street. "Should we chase after the two of them, sir?" Andy asked. Looking at the two, Andre found it strange. It didn't seem like the creature was following the strange masked man like he was his master. Instead, it looked like he was trying to... "Leave them be. We have to go back and check up on the students," Andre replied. Quinn started running at full speed, activating his windwalk boots, but he knew it would be useless with the great speed of the bloodsucker. The only thing he could do was run into buildings to slow Fex down. While Quinn was able to navigate smoothly through them, Fex would bang into several items, or use his brute force to smash into them. "This should be far enough," Quinn thought. In one of the abandoned buildings, there was an empty large room. He quickly placed the flask on the floor and ran aside. He was still unsure if Fex would continue chasing after him or go after the flask. When Fex reached the flask on the floor, he immediately picked it up, using its clawed hands. He shook the flask and poured the contents into his mouth without allowing a drop of it to touch the floor. Once the flask was empty, the bloodsucker started to sway, as if he was drunk and was about to collapse on the floor. And soon after, he did. While looking at the body from a distance, it looked like the body was starting to shrink. "Well, I'm glad that's over with," Quinn said. While Fex was busy going back to his regular self, Quinn looked out the window and at the tower. It now was only a few buildings away. "I wonder what's in there." Andre and Andy decided to not chase the strange creature and went over to check up on the twins. They were no longer on the floor in pain. Their armor had managed to take most of the damage, but still, the strikes and attacks they received were powerful enough to knock the two of them down. "Who was that guy?" one of the twins said as he accepted Andre's hand to stand up from the ground. "I'm not sure. I haven't seen that ability before either," Andre replied. "Most likely an original that's on this planet or an independent traveler." "What? Was it that strong that we hadn't seen it before?" the other twin replied. It was their job to know who was on the Orange Portal planet with them. After all, they would be working together and exchanging information while on the planet. They were sure that other than the military, they held the second highest position of power as one of the big four on this planet. There were other shelters around, but these two were the most renowned, and where most civilians would take refuge due to their reputation. "Hey, I think you better come and take a look at this," Andy shouted to the others. The three of them prodded along, and when their eyes made contact with what Andy was looking at, the two twins nearly keeled over from the shock. That's the king-tiered beast we fought against before," the twins shouted. They had fought several times against the king beast as a team without Andre, so they knew the strength of the beast. They couldn't believe that what had caused them so much trouble was now dead on the ground. "What do you think happened?" Andy asked. Andre then knelt beside the beast and started fleshing out certain parts of the beast's cadaver. They knew what he was doing. He was looking for the beast's crystal. Only after fleshing out several different areas of the body with his small dagger did he finally find the crystal. It was located where the human heart would be, slightly to the left of the middle of the chest. The extracted crystal didn't look common at all. It was clearer and wasn't as murky and cloudy as lower-tiered crystals. But there was something far different in this crystal. It was the fact that it didn't radiate any light at all. Usually, an extracted beast crystal would give off a glow. It would pulsate with energy, as if the crystal was a living being. However, the crystal in Andre's hands didn't give off any light at all. "I'm surprised. There's still a crystal inside? How come it wasn't extracted?" one of the twins said. "Perhaps it was killed recently," Andy replied. "Also, the fact that there is no glow would suggest that the beast has gone into a type of rage mode." Hearing this, the twins gulped. They remembered how tough and frightening it was to fight this beast without it going into a type of rage mode. To be honest, the two felt lucky to be alive fighting against such a beast. "Perhaps the creature and the strange man from before were the ones that killed it?" Andy said. "They were the only ones here at the time." "No," Andre replied. "There were others here as well." While saying this, Andre looked in the direction of Vorden and the others. When they had arrived, it seemed like they were in combat with the strange creature. "They were here before us, and they might have seen something. They might have some answers for us."
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.